And welcome back, class, to the penultimate episode of the True and Accurate History of Greece. It's been a while, just about over 2 weeks since the previous installment, and there are a number of reasons for that, but I don't think there's any need to get into them right now. As you can see, immediately, Nobunaga declares war at this point of history again in 1998. And many people question why he made this bold move, especially when Greece had such strong alliances with most of the city-states still at this point, thanks to the work of the companions. But it could just be that with Knossos and Melanalco captured, Nobunaga felt that Greece's territory was growing too large to his north and that he was getting pincered in once again. So it was certainly a prudent move on his part if he felt that he had the resources to carry out a full conquest of Greece. Unfortunately, this just really pissed off Alexander, who awoke briefly from his maddened slumber, his comatose state, to see what was going on in the world around him, to see that Sparta had been captured by the Japanese, and to see that Nobunaga had declared war yet again, and he was just furious. And he ordered all-out war against Japan, with no hope of mercy. At this point, having had Knossos stripped of them, and Melanalco and Tula captured by the Greek, Montezuma grew afraid, and sued for peace, biding his time, no doubt, until he could find a way to take them out. Now, Sparta was in a difficult position. It was always the closest border city, it was always where the action took place in the war against Japan. But this time it seemed Japan had a real interest in taking Sparta, and they did in 2001. This had a devastating effect on Greek morale, especially as it left Athens open to direct assault for the first time in Greek history. Now, Alexander, awakened and furious, began building up the army, building up the guns, and getting ready for total war against the shogun across the channel. Meanwhile, Corinth, captured by Nobunaga many years ago, came under assault from Melanalco, the Greek forces striving to open the city back up to liberate it from Nobunaga. He was notoriously a brutal man to his prisoners of war, and we can see here some of his soldiers sneaking up trying to get the drop on Melanalco, while the rest of the Greek troops are busy with Corinth. But as it turned out, Corinth was not able to stand for long against the Greek. You can see the Greek here turning to engage the Japanese, mostly to protect the cannon, which was going to be a very necessary weapon in this war. Unfortunately, the Japanese were undeterred by the Greek infantry, and went after the cannon and just destroyed it all the same. But they were essentially kamikaze troops, as they knew that they would be completely cut off from support when Corinth was captured, as it was in 2004. And Japanese troops found themselves deep behind enemy lines once again, as they attempted to circumvent Athens, which was far too heavily defended for them to take at this point. But they found that it was much more difficult than they'd imagined to get in to the Greek heartland. As we can see, Alexander has awoken, and he has taken command of the army, as he had always said he would, and as the people always believed that he should, as he was, after all, a god. And as a result, the Greek are fighting with much more fury than they have in a long time, and much more fervor than they have in a long time. They are really putting it all on the line in their attempt to destroy Japan, to recapture Sparta, and to eliminate Nobunaga's presence from the world, essentially. Now, what have we here? Yes, those Japanese soldiers still behind the lines trying to sneak up against Mycenae, but they're not going to have very much hope. There are troops converging on them from all sides, and Warsaw is holding out fairly well, though its technology level is lagging far behind the other city-states for some reason. It's difficult to imagine why, but that was simply the case. Warsaw, perhaps, stuck behind those mountains, unable to muster up the resources it needed. Now, the Japanese troops were well known for fighting until the last breath of the last man standing. And even so, Nobunaga saw that the Greek were not going to meekly lie down and allow him to win, and he sued for peace in 2008. But Alexander refused. He was determined to completely destroy the Japanese. We're here now in 2009, and Alexander is just simply fed up with the performance of the Greek troops, which he feels is completely inadequate. And so he begins declaring all-out war, not just against Japan, but against the world. It was Alexander's belief, as of 2010, that the only way that he can recapture the fame that he ever wanted, recapture that godlike fear that people had of him, was to set Greece up against the world and see who survived. Now I've got the tachyon emitters on here as we're in 2011. We'll just get the temporal processor booted up here. I think I've got everything ready. So as we're going to move into 20... Whoa! What? What's happening? What is this? There's some kind of glitch. Just a second. I'm almost... Okay, I think we've got that fixed, and we're just gonna move on into the... What? Oh my god. What's this? There's something... What is going on? There's definitely some kind of glitch. I gotta just... Hold on. Hold on. There's something going on here. I've gotta get... What? Where's this? That doesn't look like anywhere I've been. Whoa! Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. There was some kind of glitch in the programming of the tachyon emitter there, and the temporal processor clearly did not function exactly as advertised, but I think we're back on track. I'm going to look into those weird glitches later on, but for now we're just going to observe what's happening. It's really strange. I'm going to have to check that out and go a little more in depth into those simulation errors and see where they're coming from. So we can see that Greece is starting to lose influence over many of the states of the Hellenic League, in part because they're very poor at this point and they're only getting poorer. You know, they're living in a golden age right now with the return of Alexander, which has brought great prosperity and great hope to the Greek people, but it's a time swiftly coming to an end, and the money's simply not there to continue to bribe the city-states, and they haven't been making demands which Alexander has been able to meet. Cape Town, for example, has continually asked for a road to be built between Cape Town and Athens, and even though Alexander did so about 50 years ago, or maybe even 100 years ago, the people of Cape Town did not seem to see that as actual success. I can see here the advent of the mechanized infantry, which was something that Alexander had managed to design, taking into account the new technological advances that Greece had discovered in his absence. The United Nations take their first vote, and Alexander has a surprising amount of support due to the size of the Hellenic League, but not enough to gain a diplomatic edge over Catherine, his nearest rival in influence. But the mechanized infantry is here, and it is hopefully going to give Alexander the edge against Japan as he seeks to crush Izumo, which we see him do here in 2016, and then to move on to retake Sparta. Now, Nara, there in the southwest of the continent, is now cut off from the rest of Japan, and that's exactly how Alexander wanted it. But you can see there different nations suing for peace as they've not really gotten involved in the war at all, but Alexander refusing them all. He's of the firm belief that if Greece can't defeat the entire world in combat, then Greece no longer deserves to survive. Is essentially saying, if you can defeat me, you are welcome to your victory. If you can defeat me, I do not deserve to live, and neither do the people of my country, and my country no longer deserves to exist if we cannot defeat the entire world in mortal combat. Now this was a bit of a diplomatic morass for the rest of the world, as they were not used to this kind of behavior from the people of Greece, or indeed from the people of anywhere in the world. So it was hard for them to figure out how to deal with it. Nobunaga, of course, wanting peace, but Alexander refusing, as Nobunaga, as usual, has been his chief rival throughout history, and the one man to betray him and harry him and infuriate him more than any other on the planet. So the people in the rest of the world are trying to figure out how they're going to deal with Greece now that Greece has seemingly gone war crazy. And it's not an easy topic for them to deal with. You can see here in 2020, Corinth is fighting off invasions out from Tokyo. And Florence and Cape Town are dealing with some Persian raiders. That is, until Cape Town finally gives up and says, you know what, Alexander, we're not going to deal with this anymore. We have no interest in being at war with the entire world, and we're out. And Cape Town immediately made peace with the rest of the world. Alexander declared them traitors and would have nothing further to do with them until they admitted they were wrong and rejoined the Hellenic League. Alexander was quite proud of his destroyer, but he was also more protective of it than he really should have been. There are many battles that he could have won if he had been more willing to risk the destroyers and more willing to risk the guns, but he simply valued them too much. You can see here in 2021 the battle to retake Sparta begins. The mechanized infantry giving the Greeks a decided edge over the Japanese. You can see here they have nearly taken the city already within a year of siege warfare, and it is only a matter of time before Sparta is liberated. There go the guns, there go the infantry, and Sparta is free once more. Nobunaga's territory is rapidly diminishing, and he knows that this is a problem that he's going to have to deal with. Unfortunately, Alexander is simply proving too bloodthirsty to deal with in any simple, immediate way. But the people of Greece, while happy coming down from their high of the return of Alexander, and are now beginning to wonder if being at war with the entire world is really worth it, especially as they no longer have money. And that's something that we're going to delve into more in the final episode as we see what happens over the final 20-25 years that I can milk out of this system before it becomes too unstable. And we should be seeing the end of this series in 2050, because we're not going to be able to get beyond that year without the system crashing. So if you'd like to see more, rate, comment, and of course subscribe to this channel. We've gotten so many more subscribers and so many more views, and I'm so proud of what we've accomplished together. I want to thank you all. Until next time, which will be much sooner, all the best.